Alright, what's up guys? I am going to make for you the Marine Corps officer versus enlisted uniforms. Really, it's going to be an overview of a lot of different uniforms, and you might find it interesting, you might not, but every uniform that's out there fits into three basic categories. You got your field, service, and dress uniforms. Now, PT gear's out there, it's kind of like an outlier, because you're never going to really wear it for an extended period of time. Alright, so field uniforms are what most people think of as your camis, or the Marine Corps Combat Utility Uniform. So they're really the same on the officer and enlisted side, and when you're looking at it, you're going to notice the only real difference is that enlisted Marines tend to wear this flat black rank, or their chevrons on their collar. Now on the officer side, when you're in garrison or you're doing regular stuff around the base, you're going to wear this shiny rank like this. And when you go do field ops or you get deployed or something like that, you're going to wear your little flat blank rank like that. And that's really the only difference in camis. Moving on to service uniforms, you're going to notice some significant differences, is what I would call them. So we can just work our way from the top down on this, looking at the cover. So on top of the officer's head, that nice cover that he's wearing there, you're going to see the quatrefoil here. Now it's just like a plus made out of rope. It's also a thing that's historic for being a marking to not get shot by sharpshooters that are up in the ship's rigging, back when ships used to have a bunch of big sails and guys up there would be trying to shoot the bad guys while boarding ships. So there's your historic piece for that. Other than that, once they get to 04 and above, major and above, you're going to see these little gold leafing things pop up. They change once you hit general again, but that's the only real difference that you're going to notice on the cover for the officer versus the enlisted. Now, working our way down, you're going to notice that officers wear their rank on their shoulder. It's also smaller, so on the enlisted side, they're wearing their chevrons or their rank on their sleeve. Much larger, much more noticeable. And in addition to that, they have their service stripes on their sleeve that officers do not wear. So every 4 years, they get this little service stripe or hash mark. So really with the service alphas, those are all the main differences that you're going to notice between an officer and enlisted Marine. Now, once you take the jacket off, you're going down to like service bravos or the short sleeves or service charlies. So when you're looking at that, officers, when they switch from the service cap, which is the big one, to the garrison cover, which is the tiny one, they're going to have their rank insignia up here, whereas the enlisted are just going to be blank. And they're both going to have an EGA on the side there. Then again, rank on the collar, nice and shiny, easily visible, and rank on the sleeve, much larger. Okay, so those are only real differences that you're going to notice in your service uniforms between the officer and the enlisted side. Alright, dress blues. Now, we're not going to talk about all this crazy stuff. We could spend like 20 minutes going over all these different little intricate things, from evening dress to all the band dudes out there, this stuff that you don't really see on a day-to-day basis or really ever. Like you're not going to see this for years unless you end up out by somewhere like DC or 8th and I, or just somewhere random that you run into official band guys and a lot of senior officers. So just regular dress blues, right? So enlisted versus officer side again, we'll work our way from the top to the bottom. On top of the officer's head, up on here, you're again going to see the quatrefoil, that good plus sign. You also got the different types of gold leafing that are potentially there on the brim of the cover, and perhaps one of the more noticeable things that you'll see on all officers versus all enlisted is this chin strap up here. So the chin strap on the officer side is this gold with a red stripe. On the enlisted side is just this flat black leather. Not so much a matte black, it does have a sheen or a shine to it. I mean, you can see the reflection in this guy right here. Working our way down, you're going to notice that There's what I like to call the most uncomfortable thing about the officer dress blues. This little white collar that sticks up out of the collar. You wear that and it literally feels like a piece of paper trying to dig its way into your neck. Yes, you already have the chokey collar, just like the Enlisted Bubbas, but this thing is just an added piece of discomfort. From there, you're going to notice that officers again are wearing their rank on their shoulder, much smaller. Enlisted are still wearing their rank on their sleeve, and they also have a hash mark here. Now you'll notice the whole jacket has this red piping for enlisted Marines. The officers do not have that. It's very much just that deep navy blue, very minimalistic looking uniform. Same buttons going down. If you want something historic about that, it has 13 stars on each button. You've got the eagle, which is holding an anchor, which is what came before the eagle, globe, and anchor on each button as well. So pretty cool looking. You'll notice it if you actually look closely at the buttons. Another thing that's different from enlisted officer, underneath here, he's probably just wearing a white t-shirt. Nice and comfy, a little warm. I mean, this thing is pretty thick. It retains heat, especially in the sun. Officer side, you're going to be a little bit hotter. You got this big French cuff shirt on under there. You have to wear cufflinks on, and I swear it adds at least like 3 or 4 degrees of body heat being trapped in there because it's just hot. Now, the waist belt here, you're going to notice on the officer side, it's very, very minimal. You have this little gold buckle, whereas on the enlisted side, you've got your gold buckle with your globe and anchor, and for staff NCOs, they got some olive branches on either side. Now, the trousers, you're going to notice for corporal and above or NCOs or above, you have what's called the blood stripe running down either side. Another thing that's different for an enlisted and officer is the swords. So on the officer side, you're going to notice the Mameluke sword has a lot going on here. You got this little leather thing that's tied a certain way. It's going actually into the sheath here, but it's also tied to that by this leather sling, and all this gets attached to a belt. It's kind of interesting to set up the first time, and once you set it up once, you kind of hope it never falls apart. It's very intricate and a lot of moving parts going on. Whereas on the enlisted side, you got your good old trusty NCO sword. A lot easier to handle. You're not going to see any of this coming untied, or you're not going to like bump into something and have something jostle around and fall off. It's a lot simpler. And you'll notice that the junior Marines, like the privates and PFCs, graduating from recruit training here, they do not have the blood stripe, whereas their drill instructor over here has it. Alright, so let's move on. These are all the little things that I haven't really talked to you about yet. So, the blood stripe. A lot of people insist that there's history here. Well, you could go on and on and say it's commemorate the whatever, but the reality of it is the blood stripe existed long before the Mexican War. It even says it on the Marine Corps Museum website. And as you keep reading, the one that we know and love finally became permanent back in 1904. So, I mean, you could argue the historic piece of this, but again, it was fancy beforehand, and people thought it looked cool, and then they're like, oh, well, we're going to keep it or bring it back, and we're going to say that it's because of this. It's just lore, man. It's just cool stories. Nothing really historic behind the blood stripe besides rumors, which rumors go a long way sometimes. Officer enlisted eagle globe and anchors. Alright, so on the enlisted side, when you're wearing your blues, you've got your gold eagle globe and anchor here, and the rope really clings tight to it. Part of that's the way that it's minted. It's a lot easier to make them. None of them are going to break in production. They'll be able to mass produce faster and cheaper. So better for the enlisted Marine. The officer side, you're going to notice that it has gold as well as silver, and the rope's going to hang off there to look kind of fancy, and it costs more because of that. So, additionally, same thing with the service uniforms. You'll notice on the officer side, the rope hangs off the EGA slightly, has a little bit more detail. When you actually get up close and look at it, you'll notice the lines are better engraved. It's obviously molded, but it's a deeper mold, and there's likely more of them broke during production, which is probably why they cost more. Whereas on the Enlisted side, the rope clings really tight here, and you can see it's not super finely detailed even looking at just the eagle. Alright, now another thing that I didn't really talk about was the phasing out of the female uniforms that don't really look uniform. It's kind of a thing that's been happening. So the cover went from being this little drummer boy hat to, your regular dress blue cover. And then the jackets, that's kind of a thing that's on the edge right now, is transitioning to the same dress blue coat. I'm hoping that it sort of carries with every other uniform, because what's the point of having a uniform if everyone's not uniform? Also, there's really no good way of measuring medal placement when you don't have any kind of pockets. Just like civilian life. Females don't get pockets. But anyways, before I get too distracted by that, you can also see what I like to call the I forgot my ribbons uniforms. Very common among recruiters and people who just generally don't want to try and iron their shirt or find their ribbons. Just kidding. It's a tanker jacket right here. This goes with your blues normally. You'll see these out on recruiting duty a lot. And same thing with the big green itchy service sweaters here. People wear those. A good scapegoat is typically the weather, but honestly, winter Marines have been known to be creatures of comfort. I honestly don't see anyone wear those a lot, but it is an option. And the last thing that I have on this slide is a nod to maternity uniforms. So the maternity camis exist. They have these buttons along the midsection, or like the stomach, that allow that part to be expanded out, and so you still get to look fairly professional in an everyday working uniform. And then you have the service uniforms here that are specifically designed to be more accommodating. The only one that I find sort of lacking in the aesthetic of a uniform, or the sort of look that you usually go for with the uniform, is the Service Alpha, which is supposed to look more professional than the Service Bravos. You get this big green apron. It's like another $50 for an expecting mom that PCSs. It really doesn't look stellar. I guess it's a thing. It's an extra layer if you want to trap in some more heat. It's something that you're going to make people wear to check in, but really it's yeah, it is what it is. You can see it for yourself. Alright, let's go on to my last slide here. So, last thing I've got is PT gear. So, PT gear is a uniform. You're not going to wear it all day. That being said, the Marine Corps really has this sort of aged fit of a green t-shirt and shorts is what you're going to see is most common. Even though you have the shoulder seam at the shoulder, for some reason you can only ever really get quarter-length sleeves. They're never going to come down like to the elbow, not even like halfway in between like a tight-fitting t-shirt would, or like a form-fitting shirt. They're going to be way up there for you. Same thing with the shorts. If you're wearing them right or appropriately, you're going to probably get to mid-thigh on a good day. Sometimes a little bit higher if you got some bulkier legs. And yeah, if you get shorts that are actually getting close to the knee region, like an inch or two above the knee, they're probably going to be falling off you and be the completely wrong size. So you're not going to look cool. Sorry guys. But you got the sweat top and sweat bottom here. It's just green on green. Very, very plain. Looks like something that you'd want to wear on like a Saturday or Sunday, just hanging around at the house watching cartoons. It is comfy though. Like it's not that it's uncomfortable. It's just, it exists. And probably the most modern piece of PT gear is the tracksuit. You see a lot of like high visibility moto runs that happen around like the Marine Corps birthday and stuff like that. They'll have people wear the tracksuit because it just looks better when you have a group of people running down the street wearing this than wearing this. Alright, but yeah, I mean, if you look at the other branches, their PT gear is a little bit more modern. The Army tends to have shorts that are closer to basketball shorts, closer to an inch or two above the knee, sleeves that actually go down towards your elbow like a regular t-shirt would be. Same old sort of tracksuit thing going on. The Air Force has been making a push for some new PT uniforms too. I'm not completely sure why the Marine Corps is behind the power curve on this one, but other than that, most of these pictures, like these stellar folks, these guys here, heck, all these guys, these here, like 90% of this, all that came from these two here, these two didn't, but all that came from the reference material of Marine Corps Order Papa 1020.34 Hotel. It's going to probably be phased out because the tattoo regs changed, so they might just cut that out, or maybe they're going to want to make some more changes to the uniforms, but it's a couple hundred pages on everything about uniforms, how to wear it, all the things we didn't talk about, like mini medals and other awards and devices and things like that. But that'll about do it. Don't forget to hit like on this if you stuck it out till the end. If you don't mind listening to me talk and you want to ask me some questions or hear about anything else, hit that subscribe button. And until next time, Semper Fidelis, the rest are jealous.